Photographers, do you struggle to get around? Have you broken a bone? Have you got a bad back? Are you disabled in some way? Do you find that going into the street or into a place or onto the beach or wherever it may be to take photographs, you're kind of limited because of your accessibility issues? Well, this last week or so, I've had a real ruder awakening than normal with that. As some of you know, I've got a bad back and I've had issues with mobility over the years. But on this occasion, I have a broken foot and I've just spent a week in Rhodes in Greece trying to take photographs in the street and in places and pubs and around the place. And I found it exceedingly difficult to get around. Without further ado, let's get into it. Hello, welcome back to the Lance Burkitt Encounter. Now I know I've done it. I said I wasn't going to do it and I've done it. When I came back after Christmas, I said I'm going to do an episode every couple of weeks at the max, and I set off really well. I think I did 3 by the end of January, which was pretty good for me. And then, unfortunately, I've been rather busy with ventures and not had chance to come down to the studio to record a podcast because I've been busy earning a living, being a photographer, being a videographer, and more recently because I've broken my foot. Now, those amongst you that might have had a broken bone before will know the insufferable pain I'm currently going through. And this happened a few weeks ago. Now, I'd love to tell the story that I was, climbing a mountain or doing some motocross or even falling off my bloody motorbike. But the truth is, I was casually walking down the street, walking the dogs. I put my foot down and my 5th metatarsal broke. And at the time, I didn't know it was a 5th metatarsal. I thought it was, I don't know, maybe I pulled a muscle. So I rested it for a few days. It didn't get any better. 4 or 5 days later, I thought, sod this, I'm going to go to the hospital. I went to the hospital and lo and behold, broken foot. Now, this broken foot diagnosis was on the Wednesday, and the following Tuesday we were due to go to Rhodes on holiday. So as you can imagine, Kirsty was very, very impressed with me at this point. But I asked whether it was okay for me to fly and travel, and the lady who did the triage said, absolutely, the specialist will be in touch at some point in the next week to let you know exactly what's gone wrong. In the meantime, here is this clog. And if you look on the picture on the screen there, you can see me wearing this rather fetching clog there. Hobble around on that and we'll see what the specialist said. So I did that very thing, but I couldn't walk more than, 10 feet without being in absolute insufferable agony pain. So Kirsty decided that I should get one of these rather fetching motor scooters for our holiday, and I protested and said, there's no way, absolutely no way I'm spending a week going round anywhere on that. I've got my macho image still uphold. So which Kirsty said, well, what we're going to do, we've got this nice holiday booked, we're in Rhodes, think about all the photography you won't be able to do, what we're going to do, sit around the pool. And I thought, oh yeah. So under some protest, I reluctantly agreed to have this rather fetching scooter. And the truth of it is, without it, we would have done nothing and gone nowhere. Never mind the photography. We wouldn't have had a nice holiday. We wouldn't have seen nice places. Wouldn't have done any of that because I would have been too busy sitting around the pool feeling sorry for myself. So, not last week, gone the week before, we went to Rhodes and I had the motor scooter. And we spent a glorious week, quite humorously, me going around Rhodes on a scooter. Now, what had not occurred to me prior to this was, as you know, I've got a bad back and I've had years of this bad back and I've had some issues with climbing walls and I can't bend down and get up, all that stuff. So I did a podcast last year on the limitations that some people have in photography. And I thought I'd kind of raw into the deal. I thought I'd, got this bad back, I can't do a lot of things. That wasn't until I spent a week on a motor scooter, unable to walk, and I quickly realised within about the first 30 seconds of leaving the hotel that the modern world is not at all set up for people with mobility issues. And I say that genuinely because what I quickly found was, although the people in Greece were very nice and very acceptable and, helped, the actual beautiful town, beautiful town, is not one bit set up for anybody with any disability issues or rather mobility issues. And I found this out within 100 yards, again on the footpath. And we'll talk about that more as I go along. So we ended up spending our week going around the lovely roads. Roads being the operative word. On a motor scooter, Kirsty was walking along taking in. She was great. She is great. I mean, I'd be fucked without her. I mean, she ordered the scooter. She made sure the trips we couldn't go on were cancelled because obviously I couldn't take a scooter on a bus, or it was difficult to get it on the boat, that kind of thing. So we did a lot more, or Kirsty did a lot more walking, I did a lot more riding. Well, the whole kind of point of this podcast today is to kind of take my hat off to people with disabilities, particularly mobility issues, because I've photographed as a person with a bad back for years and had to not do things because of the bad back, bending down, laying on the floor, climbing up, stretching, that kind of stuff, standing too long. But I've never been in a position where I couldn't really walk. I could walk with pain, but I couldn't. This pain, this broken foot, was after 4 or 5 steps with that boot on, some of the most horrendous pain I've ever felt in my life. So walking was an option. So I literally had to go everywhere on this scooter. Even in the hotel, from our room on the ground floor to the dining area was about 50 feet. I couldn't walk that. I had to go on the scooter. That's how badly broken my foot is. So from a photography point of view, I thought, how am I going to approach this? Because normally when I'm walking around doing street photography, I shoot from the hip. So you'll have seen pictures I've posted before. Camera around the neck on a holster, roughly waist height, taking pictures from the hip. And sometimes I'll pick it up to the eye and take pictures straight with the eye. But more often than not, I'm shooting from the hip to try and catch people unaware. And it's convenient because it means people can't see me doing it. They're not going to react to me. But that's kind of how I've developed my street photography over the years, rather than being one of those kind of photographers, I guess, in people's faces. And again, we discussed this before because I'm a chicken shit, really. But as Kirsty likes to point out to me, my pictures are better and different and a bit more honest because I'm doing it from the hip and people don't get a chance to react to me. So I'm on this rather fetching Ferrari scooter, which actually says it maxes out 6.5 mile an hour, but on the dashboard there's a little hare or tortoise function, and if you put it to hare, it was closer to probably 15 miles an hour. So when I was navigating some roads, that was pretty handy. But I'm thinking, how am I going to have the camera around my neck and do photography whilst trying to ride this scooter around the streets in a strange place where they drive on the other side of the road to me, to what we do in England, and how am I going to manage all that? That was the least of the problems. Well, the first problem I came across was I'm right-handed, and cameras, I don't think I've ever seen a left-handed camera. Cameras are right-handed. So you pick your camera up with the right hand, use your right hand to take the shot, do all that, you focus with your left. If I'm shooting from the hip, I've got it in my right hand, my right hip, that's how I'm working. But now I've got a seat and a set of handlebars with a forward lever and a reverse lever. The forward lever's on the right hand if you're right-handed, although I figured out later on that you could use either. How am I going to ride this thing and do shooting from the hip? I'm going to have to stop every time I want to take a picture. I'm going to have to stop, I'm going to have to faff around, get it up where I need to take the picture, and then set off again. But me being me thought, well, that's going to be better than no photography at all. You come into Rhodes, there's some beautiful places, not just scenery, but on the streets, some of the ancient stuff. I want to take photos. Yes, I've come on holiday. Me and Kirsty love our holidays. And we normally walk for miles and miles and miles. Kirsty did. But on this occasion, I had to navigate what can only be described as sheerly horrific, horrendous, totally not made for anybody with mobility issues at all, roads, and more pointedly, footpaths than you could ever see anywhere else in the world. I don't think I've ever seen footpaths as bad. And the first time I experienced this was we came out of the hotel and we just wanted to go into the old town, which is about 7 or 8 minutes walk. So I set off down the footpath and I only got 100 yards and realised that the footpath didn't have a ramp to get off. It was about that steep off the edge of the curb. So I had to go back and then come down the road. But I got on the road on the wrong side of the road because we drive on the left and in Rhodes they drive on the right. So I'm there on a motor scooter no helmet, no Ivy's vest, didn't even have any shopping in my trolley at that point. And I'm racing down the road trying to get to a bit of curb where I can get back on and be safe before I could even think about doing photography. And within about 200 yards, I'd already discovered that it must be absolutely not just frightening, but horrific for photographers with mobility issues who may have to ride a scooter to get anything other than where they're going safely. So that was a pretty rude awakening for me. And Kirsty was laughing her head off because here I am, big guy on this, for all intents and purposes, old person scooter with a shopping trolley or a shopping basket on the front, trying to navigate my way into Old Town, which is only 7 or 8 minutes away. And in that first 7 or 8 minutes walk, or it took us about 20 minutes because I had to keep reversing up the street and going a different way. By the time we got into the Old Town, I had to get off it and ask Kirsty to help me physically lift it up back onto a curb because it was the only way I could figure out how to get there, on my bad foot, hurting my bad foot the whole time. So on the first trip into Old Town, by the time we got that 7 or 8 minutes into Old Town, which was more near 15, 20 minutes, I was so fed up and disillusioned that I thought something's going to have to change quickly or this week is going to be utter misery. And as it turned out, because Kirsty's brilliant and patient and likes to look after me, it wasn't bad at all. It wasn't bad. It was a great week. And I did end up getting some good pictures, although on the first 2 days actually, I only took about 100 pictures. Now normally I'll take 700-800 pictures a day. First day was only a half day, so let's say 300. Second day, so I should have had about 1,000 pictures by the end of the second day, and I got 100. So you can see how difficult I was finding it to take pictures. And also, on that first day, we did actually quite quickly find a nice pub and ended up in there all night. But that aside, I didn't feel like I could take pictures like I normally could because I was paranoid about crashing the scooter or falling off it. I was paranoid about how I was going to hold the camera, how I was going to navigate riding the scooter, stopping, seeing something, shooting it, getting the picture. And I felt very disappointed that I couldn't operate how I normally did. And in feeling like that, it did make me realise how difficult it must be for people who are disabled, who can never get use of their feet back or their legs and who do have to use a motor scooter to get around. And no disrespect to our European relations in Rome, but the roads are terrible. I mean, the place is called Rhodes. It should be called the roads without roads, because they were either potholy, uneven tarmac, where there were drop curbs, people were parked on them, so I couldn't get down them. And I genuinely thought, all right, I've got a broken leg, it's not the end of the world for me. How are people with real disabilities getting around this place? Now, before we went on holiday, my kids and in-laws were laughing because I was having to get this motor scooter. But my in-laws said, oh, there'll be loads of people with motor scooters over there. You know, when we've been abroad to Ibiza and places like that, young lads are out for last, there'll be loads, and nobody will even notice you. Well, we were there for 5 days and I didn't see one other motor scooter. So one person on a frame that you kind of walk along and one lad in a wheelchair. That was it. The only other idiot on the whole island was me in the bloody motor scooter. So I stuck out like a sore thumb, and I stuck out even more because I'm not the smallest kid. You can see me, and I've got a camera hanging off me. So me trying to navigate this bloody scooter on the worst roads I've ever seen with no footpaths on the wrong side of the road, trying not to hurt my foot, trying not to run anybody over, trying not to fall off it, and at the same time trying not to be seen and being stealth was probably the most comical thing you'll ever see in your entire life. And Kirsty did actually comment that on more than one occasion. In fact, she didn't even comment, she was just laughing. Looking back now, it's funny. At the time, it was frustrating. But I did get some nice pictures that I'm quite happy with. And we'll go through them now, because that's what you come to listen to, isn't it? Me talk about pictures and how I did them and what I did. So I've spent 10 minutes waffling about my poorly foot. So I'm always kind of conscious when I'm in a foreign country about their laws and regulations, what people accept, but nobody cares. The people just don't care if you're taking pictures. I've just realised that the more I've gone along through life, through Greece, Italy, America, Iceland, Poland, wherever else would be. Nobody gives two monkeys if you're taking pictures. People, I think, are so used to it now by people doing it with their phones. It's just another thing that's happening. So I don't really get checked. I get people looking at me sometimes, but nobody ever actually checks me to say what you're doing. So as difficult as it was navigating with the camera, the first couple of days, what I decided to do was ride it slowly on 3 miles an hour and just do the accelerator with my left hand so I could take pictures with my right hand. So I kind of crossed over like that, going forwards, or pushing it forward to go back, like that. Took me a few more days before I realised, actually, if I put the left hand one forward, it would go forward anyway. But that's another story. So I'm riding around like so, stopping, taking pictures. Occasionally, if the ground was even enough and I was, safe, I would just ride along and take the picture without stopping. But you can see on this picture on screen now, if we zoom in, you can see the kind of state of the paths, curbs I was up against. There's actually a drop curb there, but that drop curb is still about 6 inches deep, and getting the trolley up there was like rallying across Paris-Dakar, so it wasn't much fun. So we're in the old town, and I'm taking pictures from the hip like I used to do, and I'm getting nice pictures. Like this picture of a guy walking past us, he's just on his phone. Another guy, strangely, on his phone. Came across some nice architecture, some lovely backlight, because this was kind of tea time and the sun's going down, so it's backlighting the building a little bit. And I'm not always that keen on photographing medieval stuff because I find it a bit boring. I mean, I like buildings that have got sharp edges or that are really old and crumbling down to pieces. They're more interesting to me than ones that have been kind of like looked after and renovated like this. But it's a nice enough shot of the castle wall. There's always a busker in cities whenever you go, and it's always nice to get photographs of buskers. This guy playing his clarinet, trumpet, whatever it is, with his backing track. I always find that quite strange nowadays that they've got battery-powered backing tracks. It's not something I would kind of do as a busker. I would just play the guitar probably, but this guy had a backing track and it was all right. I will give him some money, but I didn't have any shrapnel at that point, and I wasn't giving him a €5. €5? No way. But again, nice enough shot of a kid or an older guy playing that. There were cats everywhere. Anybody that knows Rhodes and Greece, cats like a sacred being, and there were cats everywhere. Heard a story while we were there that the cats were like kind of left to breed, so they would kill all the rats and mice. But the tourists now feed the cats, so they no longer kill them. Did I say rats and rice? Rats and mice. So they no longer kill them, so they're overrun with cats, mice, and rats. Cats, mouse, and rice, whatever it is. But there's bloody cats everywhere. And I'm not particularly keen on cats because they're a bit sneaky. You don't quite know what they're thinking. They're about to always claw your eyes out, I think. So I'm pondering through town, getting some nice pictures, more cats, of people, doing a bit of stop and stare. Did a little bit more of that than I would usually do because I thought people, if they look at me, they might feel sorry for me because I'm in this invalid carriage, even though I've only got a broken fifth metatarsal, which actually the week after when I came back and got to see the specialist, she informed me that it's not just a broken fifth metatarsal, it's broken right where the big tendon from the ankle attaches to the bone, hence why I'm in so much pain. And I've been told to rest it and not move for 2 weeks at least until it starts to knit. So I got Kirsty to take me from the doorstep of the house to the doorstep of the studio today because I just had to get out for an hour. Because I'm bored out of my brain, so that's why I'm here. Although I probably shouldn't be here, but I am. While I've got my foot waiting for it to heal with this big stupid boot on that I didn't get until the 3rd week almost of the injury. So as you can see, Rhodes Old Town is lovely. It's beautiful. Nice old medieval buildings backlit by the sun. Not always over keen on those kind of shots, but I took it because it looked pretty and I was there. And I'm kind of feeling my way around the city, and you can tell probably as we go through these pictures over the few days, week we were there, that the pictures become more interesting and a bit more worthy, I guess is the right word. But I'm always trying to capture people doing what people do in the places where they do it, and these guys are just a typical conversation going on. And it looks at a glance like that guy's looking at me, but he's not. He's looking past me up the street. Either that or he's got one eye. But I just think that there's conversations you see in the street. I mean, obviously I can't understand what they're saying anyway. But it's interesting to note people's mannerisms, the body language, the way they look at each other. Either on a busy street, but it's just those three having their conversation. They're not really aware of what else is going on. I don't even know if they saw me. Perhaps they did. A bit hard to miss, but maybe they didn't. And this main thoroughfare in Old Town in Rhodes is just beautiful. People sitting, having conversations. This is the evening time in the week, so it's not that busy. It got a lot more busier on the Saturday, the day we came back. Generally speaking, it was not that busy. So it was nice to walk around and see people. We named this the Vagina Tree. I don't know why you might think we would call it that. Well, that was a nice bar. We didn't actually go in this bar. I just thought it was nice to photograph. Empty bar with a vagina tree outside it. That looks busy even though there's nobody there. That's what kind of interested me about this frame. There's lots going on. Lots of obviously the tables and chairs and the beer and the bar and the labels and the signs and the tree, but it's more about the shadows coming through and the highlights, which makes it look busy. So busy empty bar is a strange one, and it does look nice in black and white as well, but I'm going to run through the colour shots today because I don't often show colour shots on the podcast, I noticed. I do tend to like working through black and whites, and that tends to be what I show you. These guys here, I don't know if it was father and son or whether they were partners, but they're, again, how did we get around before phones? What did we do before phones? Before phones became our thing. Middle of a beautiful town, nice and quiet, but we're on the phone looking for something. Restaurant, street, knocking shop, who knows? That's a bit of a rescue shot. As you can see, the sky's washed out, but I did like the guy. If we zoom in, you can see this a bit better. I did like that guy looking at me there. I thought it was interesting. In fact, it's probably more interesting if you look at it like that, because you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, about 15 people in that shot, all doing various things. And sometimes the people around it are more interested than the people that you've actually photographed. The reason it was blown out this shot is because I'd noticed after a little while that as I was riding on the scooter and not holding the camera was banging up against the scooter and it was knocking the dial. So I'd set off at, I don't know, 200th of a second, FA, ISO 200 or whatever it was, and then by the time I got down the street, it was like, I don't know, something ridiculous. Ridiculously wrong, so I had to rely on the RAW file for a few of these shots to bring things back, because in my haste to not fall off the scooter or run anybody over, I'd not been paying attention to the set. Again, sometimes when you're taking pictures, you don't notice things until after the event, until you get to the point where you're reviewing, and only when I came to edit this did I realise this guy is sticking 2 fingers up. But as Kirsty pointed out to me, he's probably just going 2. He's not going, you, mister. And I think if he was doing that, then the expression may be different. But I don't know. Does he look like he's ignoring him? Does she look like she's a bit pensive with a makeup brush? His body language looks to me like he's a little angst. So maybe he is giving him the rods. But I think that's one of the interesting things about photography is, who knows, you can kind of make a narrative up yourself sometimes, can't you? You look at that and you go, oh, well, I'm Greek, now he's just signalling too. But I'm from Yorkshire and it looks like he's telling him to F off to me. And that guy in the middle's expression tells me that he is telling him to F off, which would be interesting to find out whether he actually was or not, but we'll never know. We'll just have to keep that story in our minds, won't we? So, this lady in green, what a great suit, what a great colour, what a lovely bit of kit that is. Each to their own, I suppose. Again, this young couple, loves young dream, walking up the high street, just shopping, window shopping, paying attention to nothing other than themselves, which is nice. Again, I wish I could say that I framed them like that on purpose, but I was shooting from the seat, so I'm kind of like hanging on, like that, on the scooter. Got what we got, missed his toes off. If I was framing that up properly, I wouldn't have missed his toes off, but when you're doing things like this, when you're shooting this way, you kind of get what you get, don't you? You're kind of lucky if you get anything in frame at all. and this is actually quite sharp, and apart from his toe missing, it's nicely framed. I think I quite like that. This is day 2 now, and we're walking around the old town, going down towards the beach, which was beautiful, by the way. But one thing I did notice quite quickly was that there's lots of old cars there, and I don't know. I meant to search it, but I haven't done yet. Maybe you guys know whether there's any such thing as an MOT test in the Greek islands, because a lot of the cars we saw and a lot of the bikes we saw looked like they should have been condemned 10 years ago, and a lot of them were still on the road. And this is one of a lot that I saw, which included lots of things which were highly illegal in England, shall we say. And this one, a bit of a rust bucket. It almost appears as well like some of these things have been there for years, like they've just been left there. Nobody's like recovered them or scrapped them or taken them for spares. They're just sat there gathering rust. And I just find them interesting, particularly as I'm into bikes and cars, and I like that kind of stuff. I just fascinated me from day one that there were lots of old machinery kicking around. These were 3 England girls, or English girls, which were walking down the prom as we were. We kind of followed them for a bit, and they were stopping to do the holiday selfie stuff. And what really interested me about this shot is not the 3 girls stood taking the picture, it's the shoes. It's the shoes either side of them. I thought that was nicely framed. The shoes, the 3 girls in the shadows, are nicely kind of positioned for a nice shot. And that's one of only 2 or 3 pictures I took. Not really anything to do with the girls. It was more about the position of the shoes, which really attracted me to that shot. And again, I'm showing it you in colour because I don't often, and I think the colour really adds something to this. In terms of editing for all of these shots, there was literally some exposure changes, highlights and shadows like I always do. Changed on all of them. I think I changed the colour balance from last shot, which was sunny, to Adobe Sunny, and that's it. No retouching at all. I might have took a few blemishes off ones where there were stones in the way, but generally speaking, no retouching. It's literally raw file conversion, levels, done. Just nice pictures of people walking, again from the shot from the seat. Thing you'll notice is I'm a little lower down than normal, even though I'm shooting from the hip. I'm a little lower down. I'm probably shooting from somewhere between the hip and the knee in these. That's kind of roughly where the position of the camera was. So I'm a little lower than normal. It just adds another little slight dimension to the shot. Still managing to get them in frame, probably as good, if not better, than actually I do sometimes from the hip. Why that was, I don't know, because I was actually steering the jalopy whilst I was taking pictures, which I eventually mastered after 3 or 4 days, I must say, but it was a bit aerated sometimes. Again, we've got a boardwalk, we've got the beach, we've got the sea, we've got the yacht, we've got the castle in the background, and we've got a couple who are just looking at the water, probably thinking, my God, you can actually see the sand through the water here. We can see fish, because in England, unless you're maybe on the southwest coast, Cornwall, somewhere like that, all you can see when you're on the beach in England are turds that have been flushed. Again, this guy's minding his own business, guarding this entrance. Framed him like that because it was interesting. Actually, the original shot's wide, so it's a landscape shot. I cropped him that way because I just thought it was a bit more interesting to leave a bit of the story out, and that sometimes is the way. If you leave a bit out, less is more. It was a bit too obvious that it was a big kind of car parking thing with that in, so I cropped him that way. Again, these are just shooting from the hip as I'm going along. This girl looks like she was scratching a bum. I don't know if she was or not. But again, there's an interesting story in the background up here with these 2 people. Not so much these, although that is interesting. The airy-armed guy and the girl scratching a bum. You'll see in a sec the 2 people further on were more interesting. There you go. Now, I couldn't work out when I took this shot whether the mother or the grandmother, whatever she is, was helping the girl build a sandcastle or she was ignoring her because she was on the phone. So I thought, we'll have a look. And I think it's a bit of both, potentially. She's got a phone and a little spade in her hand. So maybe she was helping her build a sandcastle, and then the addiction happened and she had to become addicted for 30 seconds while the girl's looking, going, what about my sandcastle? This is looking through one of the turret walls on the castle, which whose name escapes me. Just thought it was a nice postcard shot through the window there. Yellow Submarine, seems to me you get the Beatles reference wherever you go. And a young couple sitting, having a minute, overlooking the Med. Is that the Med? Old couple. I took a series of shots of these guys as I was going past. I was kind of like going as I rode past. Is she looking at me? She is. She's looking at me. She's going, look at that English guy there on that motor scooter. What a dick he looks. I hope he's not taking a picture of us. But I was. And again, this works good in colour and black and white, but I'm showing you colour today. You can see the black and white ones on my Instagram and on the website. Sometimes I'll straighten these up so they're kind of dead straight. But on this occasion, I kind of like that falling away because I felt like as I was driving past, I was rolling away like that. So I left it that way. Again, just some girl sitting, looking out to sea, pondering life. Somebody fishing, somebody else fishing. Girl putting flags up the pole. I watched her for a few minutes, and I think she'd been painting them as well, or she was about to paint them. Maybe she was taking the flags down, ready to paint them, because you could see the roller brush there. But she was a bit dicey up there. She kind of wobbled a few times, and it was looking a bit like she might come off it, but she didn't. Couple of people just chilling. This made me laugh because obviously there was a bench there at one point, and I like how humans are kind of like, I always relate these kind of things to that meme that back in the day you used to get an instruction manual for your car that used to say, put oil in here, or put water in there, or put brake fluid in here. Now you get a manual that says, don't drink the oil, don't drink the brake fluid. And this is a case in point that they've had to put tape on this old bench frame to stop somebody falling over it or sitting on it. How did humans get here? How? And we're more sophisticated than the Egyptians? Don't think so. Nice view of the Castle Old Town. Took a picture of that because the boat's named after my lovely mum, Megan, although she was called Megan, but I know everybody else will say Megan. And this is, there's two stags there. You can see one in the background here, one here. This is where one of the 7 wonders of the world that supposedly used to sit, which was called the statue of, it was the statue of, you're all going to get to it before me, aren't you? Colossus? Yeah, the Colossus of Rhodes. Now, supposedly 100 foot, 40 foot, something foot statue stood there, once a bronze statue. Some people say he didn't have a foot either side of the water, some say he did, but it's now been replaced by 2 columns and 2 stags. And it's quite nice, and it's nice from another view, which we'll see in a minute. But you can imagine a big colossal statue stood there overlooking the harbour. Must have been something to see. If it's one of the 7, 8 wonders of the world, then it would have been nice to see. But apparently, it got destroyed in an earthquake back in the day. This lovely old lady was just sat minding her own business, so I thought I'd take a photograph of her from the side. Again, didn't have the cojones to go up to her, but remember, I'm on a motor scooter, and I think the shadows underneath her are great, and I think the highlights in her hair are great, and I think the fact she's just sat there in the sun with her eyes closed, probably wishing that she wasn't sat there in a big duffel coat, because I had shorts and t-shirt on, and I was boiling. I was sweating like a 30-year-old transit van on an MOT ramp, let me tell you. Again, just some people watching, phone and fag. People just milling about, people queuing. People eating ice cream and a beer. Beer at 10 o'clock in the morning, not my cup of tea. More people with drinks and just queuing, hanging about, chewing the fat. There's the shot of where the Colossus of Rhodes would have stood. Whether he had 1 foot either side of the pier, wherever they are, I don't know, but nice and romantic to think about a big thing stood there, isn't it? Guy on his phone, couple of different crops. What do you think? Wide, narrow, wide, narrow. Wide, you get these 2 people in the background, you can see all these and these here. When to go for the narrow shot, you can only see their feet and that bunch of people there. I don't know, not quite sure. Couple under the fountain. Nice and isolated. I like isolated things on the lower horizon and in the centre. Makes a nice bit of framing that. It's quite a nice shot. It's not a Pulitzer Prize winning shot, but it's nice. Buildings. These are more interesting to me. This was shortly after I went down the passageway on the scooter. Got to the end, and you know how when in England, when you have a footpath, they put barriers at the end to stop motorbikes and stuff going through. Well, there was one of those, and it was a choice of either go back half a mile or get it through. So me and Kirsty got it through. Some things are just too raw for the podcast, too honest for YouTube, and too controversial for Spotify. That's why I started the Lock-In. The Lock-In is my weekly email where all the filters are completely taken off. Every week I share my ideas, my brain farts, my thoughts on photography, education and reality. No algorithms, no polish, just the truth straight to your inbox. If you like the Lance Burkitt Encounter, you're going to love the Lock-In. Let's get into it. Nightmare. And again, me thinking, how the hell do people with actual mobility issues deal? How do they? Beautiful Moto Guzzi I came across. I had to take a picture of that. You know me and my bike, and there's bikes all over the place, although I'll not be riding mine for another couple of months with the stupid boot. Beautiful Moto Guzzi though. Couple talking. I think it looks like a mum and son, maybe, perhaps. There's Kirsty off in the distance walking away. Loads of quirky, funky cars and things. This being one of them. Always makes me think of Australia when I see utility vehicles. Now we're in the ute, right? But clearly hand painted with some leftover emulsion. Just brilliant, isn't it? Lots of kind of like not older buildings that are like not really well maintained. Lots of graffiti kicking about, which I always like. This is the ancient ruins, the Acropolis. And there wasn't a lot there, to be fair, and I couldn't get up there because it was steps. I could have backed out and gone all the way around the road, but I didn't want to do that on my own. Kirsty had to walk up, and I just stayed at the bottom, although I did have to go across the grass and around the path and across some gravel. People picnicking. There's the ancient stadium, which is great. I mean, I would love to have seen that when it was proper, when it was in its original state. But there's enough there for you to kind of like romanticise about how it might have been. Me taking pictures of the stairs from the little, what do they call it? The auditorium, where they would have done singing and concerts. Again, people just eating, chilling, waiting. I saw this and I thought, there's always some bastards or people leaving rubbish. Everywhere you go, tourists leave the rubbish. And I was so pissed off about that, but I thought it makes a nice picture. So I took the picture on the scooter, and then I wheeled across the edge to the left-hand side, and as I had to turn around, these two kids came back for a drink, so I let them off with it. Another guy posing on the top there. This was on the way back into town, and you can't resist seeing another hand-painted with emulsion Volkswagen camper, and I mean, that with a bit of TLC could be beautiful, but I just thought it was great, just sat there rusting away and painted with emulsion. What a thing to see. Some old toilets that were shut down, a lot of scrap dumped at the side of the road. I thought, while I'm here, I'm going to photograph all the other people who've got to ride things as embarrassing as what I've got to ride on. So this tuk-tuk thing came past, and I thought, yeah, I'm taking a picture of that. If I've got to ride this, I'm taking a picture of that. Another cat having a little scratching with the bum. I love pictures like this where you get the old kind of like stuff that's just been left hanging around. There's no real rhyme or reason for it to be there other than, sorry, highly unprofessional of me. Other than it's just been abandoned and locked down. I think they make great street ornaments, things like that. But again, I've left it in colour because colour pops. Lots of little alleyways and people stood around talking. Another old bike, another BSA in this time. More cats. Old basketball hoop, that made me laugh because I put a basketball up outside of our back door for our kids years ago, and that kept falling down because the walls are crap. But that just tied up with some string just made me laugh. I love stuff like that. Nice little corner of the building. A little jar out for tips. What we're tipping, I don't know. If anybody can speak Greek, perhaps they can tell me what that says. Timey, whatever that means. The day before took this picture, we'd been in a pub and we'd been listening to a guy talking about how he'd been in a pub down the street and there was a parrot there and the parrot was like entertaining. And then after that, we just seemed to see parrots everywhere. Felt like almost every bar we went to, there was a parrot kicking around doing entertainment. And this guy, I just said, could I have a nice picture of your parrot? And he picked him up and posed him for me, which was nice of him. He didn't convince us to come in for a beer, but we did take a picture of the parrot, and there he is again. Beautiful specimen, but there were parrots dotted around, and I don't know whether it's a gimmick. Probably is a gimmick to get people to come and have some food or whatever at the taverna, but it was nice for him to actually pose him up, because he was on like a perch before that, and he looked a bit sorry for himself. Lady sitting waiting, old castle. Yeah, see, I skipped that past that, because things like that don't really excite me. People are the things that excite me. And just in that one frame there, there's half a dozen people. Oh, what are they thinking? What are they doing? What's this guy pointing at you? Who's he directing? He's looking this way. Is he talking to her or to her? Is this somebody else that we can't see? Is there somebody here? What are these two talking about? Directions? Is that Google Maps? I like things like that. Just interesting little snippets of life where, there's just enough going on to be interested. We're not talking about specialised lighting or anything particular sexy. It's just what's happening in the frame. What are these two guys doing here? Are they just passing each other? Is he with her? Where's he going? You can wander through pictures all day long. And I think that's the kind of beauty of photography, is that my interpretation of this is, I can't remember now what she was looking at. I think it was the parrot. But she looks quite, while she's eating ice cream or whatever it is. And again, I'm shooting from the moving target on the trolley, or the jalopy, I called it, with my hand down by my side, putting the camera up, trying to get a picture, trying to frame the centre, trying to keep it focused, whilst trundling along on a trolley at 3 miles an hour. Not trying to run anybody over or come off it, just trying to be a photographer. And it brings me back to the talking about how difficult it must be for people who are genuinely disabled with serious mobility issues, who can't get a fix, who are always going to be in that position. And never mind the photography, just the access to places, the Greek people were great. People helped me park, they helped me move. One guy even moved a barrier for us, a big steel barrier. It was great. But the roads and the paths and the exits aren't designed for people with mobility issues. And there must be people living in Rhodes who have got mobility issues, because it wasn't difficult for us to hire a motor scooter, so there must be a need for them. In fact, we went past a load of motor scooter places. Didn't see any on the roads or on the paths, but they clearly need them. I just thought it just felt like the whole place had not been designed with disability in mind. And then I started thinking about a home since I came back, and it's not either. There's a guy who lives at the end of our street. He takes his dog for a walk on his motor scooter, but he has to go on the road because the paths are just not pathable. So it's something I've kind of become keenly aware of. And if there's any disabled photographers or immobile photographers watching this who have had this experience, drop me some comments or drop me an email. Let me know what you found, how you've gone, how do you manage, not just from a photography perspective, but from a generally. Is it as tough as I think it is getting around? Because it's not something, as much as I can look back now and say it was fun, Kirsty laughed at me, I zoomed off a few times thinking I was clever, I wouldn't want to go on holiday and do that again. So I can't imagine what it must be like to be in that position all the time, where your only option to get out, to go to the shops, to go on holiday, is to have a scooter. Or even worse, have to walk with a frame or not be able to move at all. It definitely changed my approach to photography on this occasion. It took me a couple of days to get used to where things were and how to safely do it and get pictures that were usable. I did stop a handful of times, and that's worse than normal, because I would stop, have to change my hands, take the picture, put my camera down, refret, go again. So Kirsty was even further in front of me than she normally would be. Those were big frustrations for me, and it took me a few days to get used to that way of working. And I did manage it eventually, and as you can see, I got some nice pictures eventually, but how do people do it? I can't imagine that being my photographic life now. Can't imagine it being my life, let alone my photographic life. Fashion parade, I just found that funny. I just thought it was funny, all those mannequins kind of sat there, stood there even, ready to parade. They almost look like they're about to catwalk, don't they? Quite funny. Graffiti. I always like seeing things like this because it shows there's humans there. Not the prettiest building in the world, but there are clearly humans living there, hanging the washing out, which will probably be dry in an hour or two with the weather there. Again, I like the uplighting on this. It kind of caught my eye from quite a way back. Nice uplighting. And I love framing buildings where there's lines and there's designs and there's bars and there's shadows. I just think buildings can be really interesting. I would sooner photograph that than the castle. The castles, they just don't, that stone stuff just doesn't really cut it for me. Again, another abandoned scooter. This was on the way up, quite a walk. Kirsty must have walked, I don't know, 10k up to this place this day, and I was navigating. You can see the paths are terrible. So I was on the road, on the main road with buses, driving on the wrong side of the road because they drive on the right, I'm to the left. I was like, it's a good job I'm confident, and I'm a confident driver. I'm confident on roads, because this could have been very dicey this day. So some great work going on. These buildings are being renovated. Guy popped out to say hello, see what we're doing. Took a couple of pictures of him, as you can see. Interesting places to photograph. What's going on? What's happening down here? I love that stuff. Came across this old Ford. If anybody knows what kind of Ford that is, do write in. I just think it's great that this old Ford's parked. It's probably been there years. I mean, there's no window in it. You can see another angle of it in a minute. It's all kind of like battered. Windscreen missing. But it's still there outside the road. I mean, that would have been towed and crushed, wouldn't it, in the UK? But I think it kind of adds something to Greece. It's just that, it being there just adds something to me. As a street photographer, that makes me happy that it's being left there. This was an old nature reserve style place, which is no longer maintained, and getting through that on the scooter, we had to get off and we had to lift it a couple of times, but then we found another way, which is just like a gravel road, which I managed to stay on, but it was difficult, but it was worth it just to see it and to take some pictures. And I would imagine when it was operational, it was much nicer, but again, coming across derelict buildings in the foliage is kind of exciting. That's a bit Alton Towersy for me. Cats everywhere. Cats just eating everywhere. This guy come flying out of a motorbike shop. That's the same bike that I've got, only in yellow. So I had to grab a quick picture of him as he went past. But bear in mind here, I'm just coming onto that road on the motor scooter when I saw him. A bit dicey. Lots of chickens, cockerels, ducks, geese, hens, whatever they are, all the way up that path. That path there goes on for about, I don't know, maybe 2 miles. We walked all the way up there. Kirsty did. I rode up on the scooter. I enjoyed it. It was nice. It's nice kicking back with your missus, talking shit, taking pictures, taking some sun. I don't know whether I preferred to walk or go on the scooter, but when we got back that night and I saw how tired Kirsty was, I was glad I was on the scooter. A few more chicks. That's not a random abandoned carriage there. That just was there because the guy on the next shot was with his child. He got his child in front of him. You can't see him. So you can see there he stood. Looked a bit like he's having a waz, but you can just see him between his legs, his kid's leg, and he's actually stood with his kid. Thought it was a nice shot. A bit of the rest of the place. And then again, looking at abandoned stuff, everywhere you go, there's like stuff chained up abandoned. You get that in most cities. Bikes with wheels missing and whatnot. And there's the Ford again. Somebody must know what Ford that is. We zoom in, what does it say? 12M or 1.2M. 12M? Ford 12M? Maybe I'll Google that in a bit. But I do wonder how long. Anybody who lives in Rhodes knows that. Let us know how long that car's been there. So yeah. If you know what that is, let us know. I've come across photography studios. This is one on a big street on the way out of Rhodes. It was busy. I could hear them shooting in there. I just thought it was just a nice picture. It's nice to see high streets. Photography still happening wherever you go. I like the little things like this that you come across when you're doing street photography in all countries where I think something's just been left. And I just have this like, perhaps there's a couple of friends live across the road and they just leave the chairs there because they're going to come out in a bit and sit and have a natter. Maybe that's why that's like that. But interesting. Little rundown shacks all over the place, which is great. This is in a big cemetery that name escapes me. I might put it on screen. I'll do the edit. Couple of probably on the way to or been to visit a loved one, having a poignant conversation. This guy having a cigarette break. Maybe again at the cemetery, maybe he's thinking, who knows? But again, saw it, stopped the scooter, backed it up a little bit, squared it up, took the picture, rode on. Nice church. More interesting than the old one from the town where it's just old stone. Kind of quite like that, colours. That's it from another angle, behind with the sun at the other side. And then this one here. Again, people on the way to from church or from the cemetery to pay respects to loved ones. Made me laugh here because as we approached this, there was a couple of beggars stood at the door. When I first pulled up on the scooter, I thought, there's an entrance fee, but then I realised it was a couple of beggars. So we gave them a few pence and went in. And then just noticed there were scooters, like people zipping in and out with scooters. But the cemetery was huge. It was like massive. It was like acres and acres and acres. And Kirsty said it's probably just the quickest way to get around is to come on a scooter. And it seemed like in the city or the town anyway, the most favoured mode of transport was a scooter. So maybe that's what it was. And then this is just going around the seafront in the Rhodes there all the way back to the old town. And some interesting things on the way past. People swimming. Looks really nice. It was about 21 degrees, so that water's going to be pretty cold, I think. Somebody on holiday, isolated again, on the phone. It's interesting, isn't it? I wonder what she would have been doing 20 years ago, before phones were invented. Would she have been sat there, stood there, on a phone? Would she have had a book in her hand, or just been staring at the sea, pondering life? I mean, she's on holiday in the Med in Rhodes. It's beautiful, and she's probably on Facebook. So everybody knows that she was actually there. Zoom out of that, go next. And again, just saw this kind of like rough looking landscape right by the sea, but if you look close you can see somebody sunbathing there, which I think is great. Just throw yourself in amongst all the junk down on the beach and have a sunbathe. Little snack wagon. All these old buildings along the front there are probably going to be knocked down unless I don't know if they're protected in Greece, but this whole landscape has been redeveloped. You can tell as you go along. But again, some interesting buildings. This interested me because of the bicycle that's parked underneath. Going on my theme of transport as I went around the city with derelict cars, derelict bikes, derelict scooters. Interesting. I thought that was on a wind tour from Vogue magazine when I first reviewed it, but clearly it's not. Although it might be. But again, shooting from the scooter hip, quite low down, looking up, missed the feet, still an interesting shot nonetheless. Took a picture of that because me and Kirsty are going on a cruise soon to the Norwegian fjords, and wondered if that was the ship we're going on, but it's not, it's a different one. Still nice. Beautiful old building. Couple pointing out to sea. Again, isolated in the centre. Motorcycle, one that's actually been used and is rideable. And now we're back in the town, and we're just mooching around the town, getting pictures of people. This guy, I joke that it looks like he's got my top on because I have a tendency to spill my food all down my top when I'm eating. Who knew? Yamaha VMAX, beautiful motorcycle, but I'd like to have heard it running, seen it move, but what a beauty. Mum and young daughter, we were sat outside a taverna here, we got coaxed in. Where I had another Lance moment here. We got coaxed in, we were thirsty. I thought we'll go and have a quick drink. The waiter said, "What do you like?" I said, "I'll just have a beer." "What size beer would you like?" I said, "A medium," thinking I'd get half a pint or maybe 3/4 of a pint. And he brought one of those great big stupid boots that's about that big, with about 5 pints in it. So Kirsty was laughing at me. I felt stupid. I haven't learned, because that happened to me once before in Rome when I said I'll have a medium, and he brought a Wellington boot size keg of beer, and I just felt ridiculous. So I felt for that one again, but I didn't drink it all because I was riding the scooter. I just had a sip. So I spent 5 minutes just taking pictures around here of this young lady and her daughter, but every time I got into frame, her daughter ran off somewhere. There she is, look. That's probably the best shot I got. Her daughter kept wandering off, so it didn't quite work how I wanted it to. But there were lots of couples walking past, interesting people. He had shouted something to her, she was responding to him. And again, I like pictures like that because, you know, in England, where I'm from, if somebody shouted at you like that in the street, you probably end up in a confrontation, but she just laughed and walked on. And I love this big hat the girl's got on here. That hat's like far too big for her, but I like it all the same. Young guy doing his waitering, lovely rooftop, close up on people. I must have been scootering again now. Always interesting people. Eating, drinking, thinking, relaxing. Wonder what she's saying there. They ain't got any beans on toast, Dad. You're going to have some gyro. I said to Kirsty, I saw the sign outside the taverna. It said gyro, and I said, "What's gyro?" And then I looked and she's laughing her nuts off because it's not gyro at all, as it's gyro, whatever it is. But it's spelt like gyro, all right? So I felt daft there. They look about as happy to be on a holiday as I looked to be on the scooter. One guy looking at me, one guy thinking he's not seeing me. Again, I'd love to know what he was thinking. Thinking, what's this pillock doing on this scooter? Don't often see a scooter in town. Shop owners just pondering life, waiting for customers to come in. These are having quite a frank conversation, shall we say. Not heated, just frank. That lady there looked like she wanted to get away from that situation, but I quite like that shot in isolation, taking it out of context from the other one. Little baby coming towards me. Babies do tend to look at the camera quite a lot. They do tend to pay an interest in things that look a bit different to what they're normally seeing in their vision. And I suppose a big, chunky, hairy guy on a scooter going to look at me. More holidaymakers. Vaping. That's something that I don't get. I don't get vaping. Oh, it's going to come back to haunt people in years to come. Kirsty said this lady in the middle here was shivering, like she got sunburn or something, or like the sun was kind of starting to go down at this point, so I think she was probably just a bit cold. But she was shaking. Smoking. Something else wrong. Again, it's just brilliant, isn't it? I mean, if you saw that in England, the police would pull you over and just confiscate it and crush it. But it's brilliant there. Just brilliant. Just all the kit I need on the bike, off to work. You'll notice I'm skipping the castle again. Lady shopping. She looks about as happy to be on holiday as I used to be when I was a kid. And, you know, I think the kind of rest of it is just mainly streets like this. I don't think we did much more building stuff because there wasn't a lot of interesting buildings around. It was mostly this kind of stuff. And after the week, I mean, I've shown you a couple hundred pictures there. I think I edited about 200, which all told, considering I shot about 800, my hit rate is actually better shooting from the hip on the scooter than it would have been normally. Normally, I would have took over a week 3,000 or 4,000, 5,000 pictures and maybe edited 100. But on this occasion, I took less than 1,000 and edited 200. So my hit rate was double what it normally is. And I don't know why that is. Whether it's maybe I felt a bit more confident on the scooter that people wouldn't judge me. Maybe I was just, once I'd figured out how to control it and move it safely, that I was just in a zone. So I was taking pictures more randomly than I would. I don't know. Whatever it was, though, I wouldn't say they're among my favourite pictures I've ever taken. There's some good ones in there, but they're not. I've taken much better pictures in other places in New York and Rome, but I think my hit rate was better. Took more good pictures than I would normally. And I don't know why that is. Maybe you can email in your message and comment your suggestions why it might be that me on a motor scooter with a broken foot ended up getting a better hit rate, particularly in the street photography, than I would normally do walking around, feeling more confident. I don't know, but that's the truth of what it was. But I come back to what I started with, and the fact that my what's the phrase? My sympathy is not the right word. My admiration for people who have mobility issues, to go just to go into town to shop, go into town to socialise, going to just go out on the street on one of those things my admiration for you has gone up a millionfold, because it was just a bit of a hoot to me. It was a way to get around town on holiday with a broken foot without having to sit and just be at the side of the pool every day for a week, because that would have been misery. And I literally couldn't then, and I can't now. I mean, I'm 3 weeks into the break now, and I still can't walk more than about 10 feet without absolutely excruciating pain. And the doctor's given me 8 weeks plus, to the point where I can take this boot off and get back to some point of normality, which is not good because it's just debilitating. But eventually I'll fix and I'll be able to get around again. And some people won't, and they're kind of stuck in this situation for life, using the scooter on rubbish paths, having to go on the road, having to go on dangerous roads. I don't know about in England. In Greece, people were very accommodating. Drivers were accommodating, apart from one guy did beep at me and shout something because I was going down a one-way street the wrong way. But other than that, it was all good. So kudos to you guys that have to, get around like this and have mobility issues. And if you've got any kind of stories you want to tell me, share, great. Pop me a message, say hello, give me your experiences. I'd love to hear them. Anyway, that's it from me today. I apologise again for not being here for 2 months because I've been extremely busy. I've got a new venture which is underway. I will be eventually starting another podcast as well, but I just can't. I'm just too busy at the minute to do it. I've got a really, really big project I'm working on, which I've just cemented today with an old friend, which will be so good and so worth waiting for, that hopefully by the end of the summer that'll be done. But that is a biggie, and I can't talk about that. But so I've got a lot going on, so I'm going to try and podcast as much as I can, because I love coming in. I love talking bollocks. I love entertaining YouTube people that always subscribe and look. But I will try and get back more. But I'm not going to promise every couple of weeks because I'm just really busy. But I want to try and get as much as possible to you guys. All right, so if you have any things you want to say, do share. Let me know. Thank you for your support. Please do subscribe and share and all that stuff with your mates. And have a great, it's Saturday today, have a great, whatever day you're watching this night. This will probably go out on Monday next week, probably. Have a great week. Hopefully the sun will keep coming out. It's nice today. We'll get some vitamin D in us, which will help. Stay well, and I'll see you all on the flip side. Cheers. Thanks for tuning into the Lance Burkitt Encounter today. I really do appreciate you spending some time with me here in the world of photography, education and reality. If you enjoyed the episode and feel like you learned a bit of something, do me a favour, like, subscribe and share the channel with somebody you feel really needs to hear it. And if you're able to, and if you'd like to, please head over to lanceburkitt.com/shop and treat yourself to some of the Lance Burkitt Encounter merchandise. After all, that's how we're going to keep the channel and the podcast alive and completely independent. Until next time, keep shooting with purpose and stay true to yourselves. Cheers.
You won't believe, yeah. I can't get you on my